I once bought a cheap cat shelf that collapsed in the middle of the night, sending my terrified cat, Barnaby, crashing onto the coffee table. Finding a wall shelf that doesn't ruin your drywall, look like cheap plywood, or terrify your feline is an absolute nightmare. I've spent the last few months testing the most popular cat wall shelves on the market to find out which ones are actually worth your money and which ones belong in the trash. Stick around, because my number one pick completely transformed my living room and my cat's confidence. 7. FUKUMARU Cat Wall Shelves. When I first ordered this, I was drawn to the minimalist aesthetic. It looks like a simple, elegant piece of wood wrapped in jute rope, which seemed perfect for a modern apartment. The unboxing experience was fairly standard, and the wood itself had a decent finish that didn't immediately scream cheap pet furniture. I was initially optimistic that this would be a subtle addition to my home office wall where Barnaby likes to hang out while I work. However, the reality of installing and using this shelf quickly dampened my enthusiasm. The first major hurdle was the hardware provided in the box. The drywall anchors felt incredibly flimsy, and when I attempted to secure the shelf flush against the wall, I noticed an unacceptable amount of flex. For a product designed to withstand the dynamic force of a cat jumping onto it, the mounting system felt like an afterthought. I actually had to go to the hardware store to buy heavy-duty toggle bolts just to feel safe letting my cat near it. Once it was finally on the wall, the actual usability came into question. The jute rope section is intended for scratching, but the shelf's overall depth is quite shallow. When Barnaby jumped up to scratch, he barely had enough room to balance his back paws. He ended up awkwardly clinging to it before giving up and jumping back down to the floor. It functioned more as a precarious stepping stone than a destination for scratching or lounging. Ultimately, while the FUKUMARU floating scratcher might work as a very small transition step in a much larger wall highway, it completely fails as a standalone piece. The mounting hardware issues combined with the lack of surface area mean it is more frustrating than functional. 6. XiaZ Cat Wall Shelves Set. I picked this one up because it promised a multi-piece playground in a single box, which is incredibly tempting when you are trying to build a vertical space on a budget. Out of the box, you get a hammock and several stepping platforms. The wood has a slightly unfinished, raw texture, which gives it a rustic look, but also made me worry a bit about splinters during the initial setup. The installation process was tedious, to say the least. The brackets provided are prominent and somewhat industrial looking, which ruins the floating illusion entirely. More frustratingly, the stepping boards are completely smooth raw wood. Within the first day of testing, Barnaby took a running leap onto one of the steps and completely lost his traction, slipping and scrambling to catch himself. I ended up having to buy adhesive grip tape to apply to the tops of the steps, just to make them safe for him to use, which defeats the purpose of buying a ready-to-use kit. The hammock portion of the XiaZ set also left a lot to be desired. The fabric stretched out incredibly fast. After just 2 weeks of use, what started as a taut, comfortable resting place had turned into a deeply sagging pouch. Barnaby didn't seem to mind the shape too much, but getting in and out of it became a clumsy chore for him because the fabric lacked tension. Additionally, the fabric had a strong chemical odor right out of the package that required a run through the washing machine before I even felt comfortable installing it. This set falls near the bottom of my list because it requires too much DIY intervention to make it safe and functional. 5. Catastrophic Creations Wooden Cat Step Floating Shelf. Moving up the list, we finally start seeing a massive leap in quality and thoughtful design. Catastrophic Creations is famous in the cat furniture world, and testing this single floating step showed me exactly why. The bamboo wood is beautifully finished, smooth to the touch but not dangerously slippery, and it seamlessly blends in with high-end human furniture. What really sets this shelf apart is the proprietary mounting system. Instead of ugly visible brackets, it uses a hidden bracket that slides perfectly over the screw heads, creating a true, magical floating effect on your wall. The installation requires finding a stud, which is non-negotiable for this design, but once anchored into the wood behind your drywall, this tiny shelf is astonishingly strong. It can hold a tremendous amount of weight with absolutely zero give or wiggle when the cat lands on it. Because this is just a single step, its use case is specific. It is not a bed or a lounge area. It is a meticulously crafted stepping stone designed to help your cat navigate from the floor to higher resting spots. I positioned a few of these to help Barnaby reach the top of a bookshelf, and he took to them instantly. They are wide enough for him to land comfortably, and the solid construction gives him the confidence to launch himself off them without hesitation. While it is a fantastic product, it lands at number 5 simply because it is a building block rather than a complete destination. It is quite pricey for a single step, meaning outfitting an entire wall with these can quickly empty your wallet. 4. HAPYKITYS Cat Wall Shelves Set. This was one of the biggest surprises of my testing phase. For a very reasonable price, this set offers a wonderfully balanced combination of resting spots and transit pieces. The kit includes a spacious hammock, a scratching post that mounts vertically, and several well-sized stepping shelves. The wood used here feels substantial, and the finish is smooth and splinter-free, providing a great middle ground between budget and premium. Installing the HAPYKITYS set was surprisingly painless. The included instructions were clear, and while I still recommend using your own heavy-duty drywall anchors just as a best practice, the provided hardware was noticeably better than the lower-ranked options. The spacing recommendations in the manual were spot on, allowing me to create a really nice, flowing pathway up my living room wall without having to guess the distance my cat could comfortably jump. The crown jewel of this set is definitely the hammock. Unlike the cheaper sets where the fabric sags terribly, the canvas on the HAPYKITYS hammock is thick, durable, and holds its shape perfectly even under the weight of a larger cat. Barnaby immediately claimed it as his afternoon nap spot. The scratching post is also cleverly designed to double as a climbing pole, allowing cats to scramble up it like a tree trunk, which is an instinctual behavior that most indoor environments completely ignore. There are a few minor quirks, like the stepping shelves being just a fraction narrower than I would ideally prefer for a very large, clumsy cat, but the overall stability makes up for it. The fabric is also slightly tough to detach for washing, requiring you to unscrew a portion of the frame. 3. FUKUMARU Cat Wall Shelves Setup. I know I was harsh on their small floating shelf earlier, but their larger, more comprehensive wall pieces are a completely different story. This setup features thick, rubber wood construction that feels like absolute armor. When you take these pieces out of the box, the sheer weight of them tells you that they are built to last a lifetime. The installation for this heavier set is a serious project, but the results are incredible. Because of the weight of the solid rubber wood, you absolutely must mount these into wall studs. Once I got them secured, I was blown away by the stability. You could probably stack encyclopedias on these shelves without them bowing. The surface area on the lounging platforms is massive, giving even the longest cats plenty of room to stretch out fully without hanging over the edges. What I really loved during testing was the thoughtful addition of the groove textures and included padding on the resting surfaces. FUKUMARU clearly listened to feedback about slippery wood. Barnaby was able to sprint up the climbing components and brake safely on the platforms without sliding into the wall. The wall-mounted scratching pillars are thick and tightly wound with high-quality sisal that doesn't shred immediately under heavy clawing. While the heavy-duty nature of this set makes it incredibly durable, it also means it has a rather bulky visual footprint. It looks unmistakably like pet furniture, which might not suit a minimalist living room. It also requires a drill, a stud finder, and a fair bit of patience to install correctly. But if you have multiple cats, heavy cats, or highly active cats that destroy lesser furniture, this absolute tank of a wall set is worth every single penny and a well-deserved top 3 contender. 2. Callico Haven Stylish Cat Wall Shelves. If you want your cat furniture to look like it was purchased from a high-end human furniture boutique, this is the set for you. The aesthetics of the Callico Haven shelves are simply stunning. They feature gorgeous, curved wooden aesthetics with a premium, almost mid-century modern vibe. When guests walk into my house, they often don't even realize it's cat furniture until Barnaby hops up onto it. Functionality matches the incredible form here. These shelves were explicitly designed with large cats in mind. The depth and width of the platforms are luxuriously large. Barnaby is a 15-pound cat with a long frame, and he can curl up completely on these shelves with room to spare. The cushions that come with the set are plush, visually appealing, and most importantly, They attach securely to the wood with strong snaps, so they don't slide off when your cat jumps onto them at high speed. The mounting hardware is beautifully integrated into the design. Instead of trying to hide the brackets entirely, Callico Haven uses elegant, stylized metal supports that actually add to the visual charm while providing industrial-level strength. The installation was straightforward, and the shelves sit perfectly flush against the wall. The cushions are also completely machine washable and have held up beautifully through several laundry cycles without losing their shape or softness. The only reason this isn't in the #1 spot is because it functions primarily as a lounging system rather than an active climbing playground. While there are steps included, the main draw is the large resting beds. It doesn't offer the vertical tree climbing elements that some other sets do. 1. THE Refined Feline. This is not just a cat shelf, it is a functional piece of modern art, and it is the undisputed champion of my testing. Measuring a massive 5 feet long, this gently curving piece of bent plywood mimics the elegant swoop of a tree branch. The moment I mounted this on the wall, it transformed the entire room. It serves as a beautiful architectural focal point that just happens to be the ultimate feline highway. The design is brilliant from a behavioral standpoint. Cats naturally love varying elevations and continuous pathways. The 60-inch length allows Barnaby to gracefully stroll along the wall, stretch out completely flat for a nap, or use the gentle curve to comfortably observe the room below. The top of the shelf is lined with a thick, high-quality Berber carpet. Not only does this provide incredible, slip-free traction for running and jumping, but it also gives them a massive surface area to scratch. Installation is surprisingly elegant for a piece this large. It comes with heavy-duty mounting hardware that perfectly aligns with standard 16-inch wall studs, meaning once it's up, it becomes virtually a structural part of your house. It easily supports multiple cats at once. Furthermore, the Berber carpet is attached with heavy-duty Velcro. When it eventually gets worn down from years of scratching, you can simply peel it off and order a replacement directly from the company without having to replace the beautiful wooden shelf itself. Yes, it is the most expensive item on this list, and yes, finding exactly 60 inches of uninterrupted wall space requires some planning. But the Refined Feline Lotus branch solves every problem associated with cat wall shelves. It is impeccably safe, undeniably gorgeous, brilliantly functional, and infinitely sustainable with its replaceable carpets. It gave my cat the ultimate high-altitude confidence, and it is without a doubt the best cat wall shelf you can buy today.